Hey everyone, welcome to the Safety Gap Podcast. I'm your host, Cassidy Shield, and along with my co-host, Karin Marquez, we dive into the innovations, partnerships, and strategies that are helping to close the safety gap for individuals, families, and communities. Today, we're turning our focus to a rapidly evolving and deeply important space, elder care. Joining us is Tim Sherno, Chief Marketing Officer at Nomo Smart Care. Tim and his team are leading the way in transforming how families care for aging loved ones, balancing safety and privacy through innovative, non-intrusive technology. This conversation is packed with insights from how Nomo bridges critical gaps in elder care to its groundbreaking integration with rapid SOS for real-time emergency support. Whether you're a caregiver, a tech enthusiast, or just someone interested in how we're closing the safety gap for seniors, you won't want to miss this. Let's dive in. Karin, how are you doing?
I'm exhausted, but I'm doing great. Thank you.
Yeah, I love recording these on a Friday because I get to ask Karin, where has she been this week? So Karin, where in the country have you been traveling?
I was in a beautiful part of the country in Boston, Massachusetts. It was lovely, swanna weather. And I was there for the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference. It was just fantastic.
That sounds amazing. A lot of good conversations, I suspect.
So many great conversations, meeting a lot of people, seeing some friends, and just also seeing all the innovation that's been happening in the public safety space. It's really amazing. These next couple of years are going to be very exciting for public safety.
Well, I look forward to, because I'm sure you invited some of these chiefs to our podcast. So I'm sure we'll have these conversations soon. So welcome back. I'm glad you're back home. Hopefully you'll get some rest over the weekend. Love to introduce our guest, Tim Sherno, Chief Marketing Officer of Nomo Smart Care. Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time you're watching this. Hello, everybody. How are you? Thanks for having me, you guys. It's a great thrill.
Yeah, we're looking forward to this conversation. So thanks for joining us. Let's just dive right in. Nomo Smart Care. Tim, I'd love you to kind of walk us through what you guys do and how as a company you got there.
Sure. Nomo Smart Care has only been around for a couple of years. We're really still, I wouldn't say we're a startup. We're beyond that because we've got quite a team behind us now, but we're going into a very important space. And for folks who don't understand what we do, the easiest way of describing it, or one of the ways we describe it is, how you put like a Ring camera on the outside of your house to watch who's coming into your house, right? You want to see what your packages are, who's at your door. What Nomo does is it allows you to protect what's inside your house, what's arguably much more valuable to you or to the people in your family. And it does that in a way that offers protection, but also offers privacy. The brilliance behind the Nomo system is what we talk about as normal motion. Nomo basically just checks normal motion, and it does it without cameras. So two different types of devices, one that tracks motion, that's somebody moving in a room, and one, a device that tracks movement. That's things in the room that are normally associated with things that we're doing in a room. So between those two things and a very easy and intuitive app, you have the ability to look and see what a person, the things that are most important to us, right? If their day is normal and if their day is not normal. And so what it allows is, I love the idea of the safety gap because it fits so nicely into that safety gap idea. And so Nomo is a system that just allows you to check on your older parent. I won't say how old my mother is, but my mother is wonderful, but she would admit to being a little bit older. And my brothers and I from all over the country. And if I'm traveling around the world, I can see exactly what she's up to. And more importantly, I can get her help if she needs it.
Karin and I have talked quite a bit about this. I think everybody can relate to having, older parents. And so we obviously find this fascinating. How the normal motion in Nomo, this is super clever. Like, how did this idea, what was the genesis behind this?
Yeah.
Go back to like how the company was started. Obviously, taking care of our elders and letting them kind of live their life in their own space is super important.
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by how these types of companies like yours get started.
Sadly, it's born out of a pretty tragic story. The owner of our company, right? His name is Mike O'Shaughnessy. He's a brilliant entrepreneur. He's been very successful. And tragically, he lost his father to a stroke. He was home alone at the time. And, when someone is incapacitated by something like a stroke, they can't, necessarily call for help. And so he started looking for a way that you could detect when something you expected to happen wasn't happening. I mean, think about just that idea. Think about how important it would be to know when something you expect to happen hasn't happened. And so from that, Mike's idea and working with our chief technology officers, a brilliant man in another side of the mind, Kevin Ray, they came up with this system that uses, I call it blunt technology, very simple technology, but combined with software that allows you to look at this. If you're a scientist or if you're a demographer, you call it data. If you're a family member, you call it just information about your mom. And to be able to take that information and to put it in a presentation that is easy and intuitive, that you can either look on your own or can be simply set up to let you know automatically when things aren't. And that's where the programming steps into it, and all that stuff just ends up in an app that you just push buttons, and all of a sudden you're getting this information that's really valuable to you. I'll just give you an example. We have it set so that if my mom doesn't get out of bed by 11 o'clock in the morning, my brothers and I get a notification, right? Think how important that is just in and of itself, right? To know that somebody didn't get out of bed. What's wrong? That will allow that phone call to happen, and maybe some care to be followed up behind it. So I was at the state capitol in Minnesota at an Alzheimer's event, and my phone triggers, but my mother didn't get out of bed by 11 o'clock. 2 seconds later, because my brother in another part of the country got the same message, he's on the phone with me. He said, "I'm on the way over there. You try to call her." Right? That's how quickly we spring into action, because we had that information that otherwise we wouldn't have had. Well, it just turns out that my mom slept in because she watched the Oscars the night before. She likes the fashion. Yeah. So I get her on the phone and I'm like, you're not out of bed. She goes, "Yeah, I slept in." But that's a happy ending to that story. Sometimes those stories don't have happy endings, or it is a way of of finding out that a crisis is occurring. And then it allows you to step in and to bring care to somebody who needs it at a moment, needs it in that moment. And you look at the statistics. We spend a lot of time looking at statistics and information. I'm a former reporter. Like, I eat that stuff up. And you look at the curve, just in women alone, how many women live alone? And the older they get, the more likely it is that they're going to be living alone. And so those women, they're moms, they're sisters, they are aunts. We love them, but they're by themselves. And so, what the Nomo system, what the idea of normal motion does, it allows somebody to be able to step into that safety gap. I love that phrase, step into that safety gap and say, "I'm keeping an eye on you. I might be in, you might be in Michigan and I might be in Miami. I can keep an eye. You woke up at night. I was sleeping, but I can go back and look at what your night was like and find out if it was a normal night for you, or did you get out of bed more often than you normally do? And I should maybe find out what's going on with you." It's that soft level of intervention that I think is so critical.
The example of your founder just struck home to me. My father, who's now deceased, he had several strokes, and this was something that always weighed on your mind, because I did not live down the street from him. We lived 4 hours away. Just how do you actually keep track,
Right.
for lack of a better word, of like what's happening? Is he getting
Right.
out of bed? Is he falling down? I love your examples. Is he opening the medicine cabinet or the cabinet where the medicine is? Did he get food out of the refrigerator? I mean, these all seem to be the simple things that are going through our heads as children with our parents. And you're just kind of saying, listen, let's just get a little peace of mind that these activities are actually happening day in and day out. Fascinating.
So look at it this way. Statistically, if you're watching this and you're a hospital administrator, or you're in the public health space, or you're in the emergency response space, you're a chief of police or a fire chief, we all know statistically what's happening with that demographic audience. We've been hearing about it for 15 years, right? The baby boomers are getting older. But here's the thing that's been happening. Those baby boomers, they've been in pretty good shape for a while, right? The first decade of that warning of the baby boomers getting older, you're like, you're an older baby boomer. They're like going, I don't have time to talk right now. I'm going to play pickleball, or I'm going to go for a bike ride, right? But this group, this herd of human beings are now moving into that gray area, right? Where we're starting to see injuries and we're starting to see slowing down, and maybe pickleball isn't what's happening. Maybe it's something less, involved and less physical. And as that herd moves into that space, family members could be across the country. They could be across town. They could be on the other side of the clock. And that's where we're going right now, right? That's where the need is going to start to become more critical, and the applications, more important as every day that we go forward. The statistics about how many people are older are one thing, but how many people are older and now need a higher acuity of care, that's really the conversation that we need to have. And that's where, we're so excited because, Nomo is ready to go. We are sitting there ready to go to help. And the population, the family population, is starting to see that need, and we'll be seeing it more and more dramatically as time goes on.
Yeah.
I want to get into what happens if, something, you get identified that something hasn't happened and
Mhm.
you need to take action. But let me first ask a question I'm just fascinated by, and that is, I think we would all, my mind goes to trying to solve this problem in using video, but I bet there's a reason why you decided to go with normal motion and not video. I
Oh
can
my God.
imagine, and I'm gonna let you just, yeah, I'd love to hear this coming. I think this is like obviously intentional, and I'd love to get kind of your thought, and maybe there's some data behind or acceptance behind normal motion over just kind of what I think we all would think is like, hey, let's put video cameras in our parents' house and just watch them all day long.
A couple of different things. One of them is, first and foremost, I'll tell you what, I'll call my mother up and I'll ask her if we could put a camera in her house, and you guys can bleep everything that she says after that, right? Just because we get older, and just because, we want to stay in our home, but it becomes a question. Can you stay in the home? It's not wanting to stay in the home. It's that, can you stay at the home safely? Just because you're entering into the zone where that question becomes something that might be asked, at first, hesitatingly, haltingly, I should say, or more aggressively, that doesn't mean that we want to give up our privacy. And being able to see me and being able to know what I'm doing are two different things entirely, right? And the way I describe that is, if I was sitting in your kitchen and you were moving around your house, you could move around your house on the second floor and I would know what you were doing, but I wouldn't be able to see you. I'd know you were okay. I'd know what room you were in. I could hear a door opening or closing. That's the level of, it's that sweet spot of level of observation of activity, but not to be able to see something. But the second part of that is that information, that motion and movement data that Nomo is able to capture is data. So that data can be cataloged in different ways. We give the people that use Nomo different ways of being able to look at that information. If you have a camera, you've got to go scroll through and see in real time what happened, right? What if somebody, heaven forbid, somebody fell, right? And you're looking at the thumbnail of the image from 2 hours earlier, and you just see the sofa and the lamp in the window, and the fall wasn't captured in the thumbnail. Now you don't know what happened, right? That's what Nomo allows. Nomo allows you to look at what someone is doing by logging their motion and logging the movement of the things that they're using. You can quickly establish. It's so interesting to realize our patterns, what we do day to day, are so limited. We do the same things all the time. I get up, I make coffee, I sit on the sofa, right? Like, and you could set your clock by me. When you are aware of those patterns of someone that you love, and obviously you're going to be, you can look for very subtle fluctuations in those patterns of behavior. You didn't open up the refrigerator till 2. You normally open it up at noon. What's going on, right? You didn't get out of bed. Hey, you didn't open up your medicine cabinet in the afternoon and you're supposed to. Those kinds of things allow us to do what I call tap maintenance. And tap maintenance means taking care of things when they're small problems, not when they become larger chronic problems. When it's a phone call to a family member, not a phone call to 911. Does that answer? I think it answers the question.
Yeah, that's actually perfect. It looks like Karin, you want to jump in and ask a question on that. So I'll let you kind of elaborate on that. But great answer.
Yeah, no, I appreciate what you said there too, is in how we're engaging with the caretakers and the family members before we have to engage with 911 services. A lot of times there's so much disconnect and that safety gap between, what is happening with somebody that is aging in place and is living their life. And then a family member maybe can't connect with them, doesn't know what's happening. They call a local, 911 center and say, hey, can you go do a welfare check on my family member? Without knowing. Well, now this gives that responsibility back in the hands of the family members and caretakers and the ability to escalate to emergency services when needed. And that's just is so powerful from, things that I've been experiencing, things that my friends have been experiencing and caring for their loved ones.
You know what? I'm gonna create two groups of people for you to consider, right? There's two kinds. And the one that the folks you guys know about, and anybody who's watching this who works in this space know about, the frequent flyers, the people who account for, the majority of the 911 calls. And it could be based on actual emergencies and an acute physical need in the moment. And sometimes it's also based on loneliness or people that are having, they may have cognitive decline and they're using that, right? And that draws the services away from other people who might need it. So there's that one group. There's a whole other group, right? And they're the non-callers. They're the people that think that, oh, I'm not supposed to call anybody unless it's really bad. I've been walking with a limp for the last 3 days and I'm unstable, in my mobility. I'm not supposed to call anybody unless it's really an emergency, right? And it's that group of people that we need to address, and we need to start rethinking that entire thought process and encouraging those phone calls and say, call when it's a less important issue so we can take care of it sooner so that we don't have to bring in lights and sirens, right? Let's have those phone calls. What I love about the Nomo system, so we partner with Rapid SOS, right? I love what we have, what I refer to as like our kind of gentle escalation. If somebody pushes the emergency alert button in the Nomo smart care system, the first people that get alerted are family members, right? And they get alerted a couple times to be like, hey, something's going on. You should probably check in. And that is an appropriate off-ramp to oftentimes that could be the level of care that's required. After that, Rapid SOS steps in, and Rapid SOS can dispatch emergency services fast. So you have that buffer. What does that allow? It allows me to tell my mother, look, don't worry about pushing the button. It comes to me first. And if I can't take it and you need help, there'll be somebody on the line who's going to take your need seriously, who's going to dispatch with authority and very quickly, and you will get the help you need. That's how we need to start looking at this whole process and changing the mindset that it's okay to call. It's okay to say I need help when I need this much help. Don't wait till I need this much help.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, there's a couple really, I'd say, fascinating aspects of what you just said. That the latter, which is actually encouraging people to reach out and get help without feeling like they're overburdening a system.
Yes.
Because they can go to their family first. I think that is very insightful design. And on top of that, I think, and this is kind of what Karin, I think where you're getting at is, I think we as family and community, we feel we are actually the first line of defense when it comes to keeping our family safe. Like, we want to be the people who can help provide the initial care, and to both your points. And if we can't, then obviously we know where to go get additional help. So this idea of like your care team, or however you put that, which could be your family members, I assume it could be your neighbor or whomever, being able to kind of look after each other and provide kind of that first level of care before. And oftentimes it's when you don't need emergency services, but they're there if you do need it. I think that's a really great, it seems intuitive, but it had to been like really thoughtful design in terms of like how you want this to work in order to derive adoption, which ultimately these things are only as good as people using them.
So when you think about it, right, I remember like it was yesterday. I was working in the backyard in my parents' house in Maryland. I was probably 12 years old, and we subscribed to Popular Mechanics magazine. And the first magazine came out with a picture of what was going to be the cell phone on it. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so cool, right? And how amazing. And for years, technology promised us that we could move away from the people we cared about, but stay in touch, right? Think about it, it predates that, but think about that, the satellite video phone call in 2001 Space Odyssey that came out in 1968, I believe. And it promised us you could be on the moon and still be close to your daughter, right? Think of all the commercials that we saw where grandma and grandpa are hovering over the monitor and the 4-year-olds blowing out the candles on the other side of the country, right? So we all felt this permission that we could move away. Now that could be across the country, or it could even be across town, but it's move out of the household, move where you can't put your hands on somebody when they need it. Now, 10, 20, 30 years go by. We're ingrained in the worlds that we live in. And that level of care isn't quite enough, right? A phone call isn't quite enough. And I'll give you a good example. Seniors, statistically speaking, are very hesitant to report minor medical issues. Why? Because they're worried it's going to be the trip to the doctor that becomes the trip to long-term care. They want to stay in their home, right? One of the Nomo users has their family members and a mother who is in her mid 80s, right? Lives in a different city. So they put Nomo in her home because they were worried she wasn't eating and they were worried that she wasn't taking her medication on time. And oh, by the way, the Nomo, we call them tags, are shower proof and they all have an emergency alert button on them. So we recommend that if you put one on the refrigerator and you put one on the medicine cabinet, if you've got one left over, the standard kit comes with 4, put one inside the shower, 10 inches off the ground. They're shower proof. If something happens, heaven forbid, you push the button. They can put it on the door. Well, what they found out was mom was like a horse hitting the fridge all day long. What's going on? And mom was taking her medicine like clockwork. You could set your watch to her. But what they found out also was that mom wasn't showering regularly. So cross-reference that with this. According to the NIH, lack of daily showering, of hygiene, is one of the contributors to urinary tract infections. And a UTI is one of the off-ramps to a fall, right? Urgency, hurrying to go use the bathroom, getting out of bed at night, hurrying at night. You can easily see how that adds up to a fall. So by being able to look at what someone's life is like, you can take steps to remedy upstream problems and prevent downstream issues. So now, mom, 84, 85 years old, they outfitted her shower like a Taj Mahal. And she is showering. She's got soaps. She's buying shampoos. She's loving life again because they found out what a problem was that wasn't spoken. That's what seeing someone's life pattern shifting a little bit, going a little bit out of focus, allows you to do. Early steps. I call them tap maintenance.
Great example. Have you found, what's the degree of which you need to lead the family to understanding the data around this term tap maintenance? And what I mean by that is, it's a lot of us struggle with a lot of data, noise, and signal or information. And what you're outlining is like some really good examples of how to take that information and turn it into actions that are preventative. How much do you do this within the app, within your content and your education, within, probably your community of folks, so they understand what these signals mean and when and how to take some of this preventative care?
The app is easy and intuitive. It's the conversation that you have with people leading up to it and getting them to understand the phrase. You can get an alert when something that you don't want to have happens, like a door opening up late at night. If you're worried about somebody maybe who has dementia with wandering, you can set an alert for that. But the flip side of that one is the one that always blows people's minds when something you expect to happen doesn't happen, right? Like there's a Nomo user who has, again, it's another mom who lives alone, who is 7:00 in the morning, is sitting in her favorite chair with the light on, her cup of coffee, and doing her crosswords. And if that doesn't happen, people need to know. So you can, we find that there are 2 types of Nomo users. They're the type who like to just kind of look in and sort of see what their loved one is doing. Oh, that's great. 2:00 in the afternoon, looks like, dad's out on the patio, enjoying the sunshine. The other side of that is what we refer to as kind of set it and forget it. They set up these triggers and they know that Nomo has got their back. If something doesn't happen that they expect to happen, they'll find out. If something that they don't want to have happen happens, they'll find out about that too. And they don't have to be so involved. They have a busy, active life. They're taking care of their, own kids or another, family member that needs more hands-on help. They know that Nomo's got their back.
So one thing that comes to my mind as you talk through this is it's clear, I think, to all of us who have elderly parents, the safety gap that this solves. However, there's obviously 2 parties involved in this solution. And historically, sometimes it's been hard to get our parents to adopt technologies like this, even though it's for their own good. I'd love to hear, and I know it's early days for you as a company, but what's been the receptivity of this technology by, you know, the elderly side of the
Yep.
equation, maybe versus like other alternatives that are out there?
You know,
On the
it's a
spot.
great question. It has to do with the idea of preventative medicine, right? And I wish that we were statistically better at prevention than we are. We're not very good at it. We know that interest in products and services like Nomo and these types of safety technology, obviously people go charging for their computer when there's been the first fall, right? But when we have conversations with people and we reach for what we call the aha moment, when they understand that the first fall is not inevitable, it can be delayed. It can be delayed with hygiene. It can be delayed with diet. It can be delayed with prescription adherence, right? It can be delayed with watching subtle shifts and addressing them early. And then you start talking about the financial ramifications of that, right? So when you look at what waiting for the first fall, you know, there are statistics about how long and they're sad. They're tragic. How long someone spends on the floor after a fall is one of the indicators of how much longer they're going to live afterwards, right? Those are sobering things to think about. And and how soon after the first fall, the second fall is going to occur. And the cost of long-term care in this country and what that can do to a family's finances. The idea of saying, I don't live in the same time zone. I don't live in the same town as you. I don't live on the same side of the clock as you, but I can keep track of you better. And I can start to help you when you enter into that gray zone of needing more help. I can be there with that help in a very subtle, gentle way. It's a change in mindset that we have in the conversations that we have with consumers. And what's really interesting is how long it takes for them to get to that aha moment. You know, I had the aha moment in my family with my brothers, and we are all just, you know, hardcore, you know, black belt users of Nomo. And once people understand it, then what you find is they get excited about how they can make it work for them. And then they share it with friends who are, how many of us, you know, if anybody who's watching right now, just think, do you know a single person who would benefit from a system like this? Everyone is going to think, yes, we all have somebody. And so it's a matter of saying, how do we say, I want to have what might be an uncomfortable conversation the first time I have it with you? How can we have that conversation rather than the conversation when somebody calls and says, hey, grandma fell? Which call would you rather make? I would rather make the call saying, look, we're going to talk about this. And if, you know, maybe you don't like it, that's too bad. We're going to do this, right? And your privacy is going to be protected and you're going to be safe, or to wait for the phone call from someone saying, you know, I'm in the car, I'm on the way down to the ER, grandma fell. Everybody has a family member who has that story as well.
Yeah, I mean, the alternatives of this in that story are pretty profound, you know, from the emergency that could happen with delayed response to you not being able to live in your home anymore. So I think, you know, as a family member, these are hard conversations, but like at some point it comes down to preventative care or two other choices that aren't, you know, that are even worse in terms of
Especially
outcome.
when you
So
consider, and it's not, you know, it's not malicious. Our older family members, they want to stay in their own home. It's their place of security. It's their place of warm memories and love and joy that it's familiar to them. It's not, you know, if they're suffering any kind of cognitive decline, they can still find where the car keys are and where the spoons are, right? They're not put somewhere new where they got to try to learn things. That's a terrifying prospect to face. So when you look at that and you say to yourself, we can team up together and we can work together to keep you in that safe space. And we can do it in a way that protects your privacy. Now we start shifting the mindset of this entire population that's entering into that gray area. And we can start to shift everybody's mindset. You know, the other important part about it is it has to be simple and easy to use. And that's one thing where, you know, I mentioned Kevin Ray before. You have to imagine a guy who he worked at Mattel. He has worked in software and gaming. He knows how people think, and he knew that this technology needed to be simple. So Nomo is, you plug it in. We've got statistics that show most people can get it set up in 30 minutes, 15 minutes, and you're good to go. It has to be, I call it blunt technology, simple, blunt technology, so that not just people who are, you know, engineers or are comfortable, you know, pushing buttons and and dialing things in so that people can just plug in and play and get back to what they're doing. And in the meantime, take care of their loved ones.
The other thing I noticed too about the solution, not to pitch your product, but it's amazingly affordable. I love this notion of like, it's like $1 a day. And I think
Right.
a lot of us who've gone through kind of do-it-yourself home security, which is kind of what goes through my mind when I think about setting this up. I think complicated, expensive, and, marginally useful. Versus this is a couple of devices, easy to set up, and like $1 a day. And I'm like, wait a minute, okay, like my mental model of the solution dramatically changes when I kind of do some research on what you're doing around. Of course, I'd spend $1 a day to keep my parents feeling a little bit more safe and
Well,
provide a little bit of preventative care.
and think about what you get with that, right? Because you get the ability to, to in your mind's eye. I always say the best picture, forget the resolution on the camera. The best picture to form of what your loved one is doing in the home is through your mind's eye. And if you know that, mom is moving in the bedroom and mom is now opening up the medicine cabinet, as mom is now downstairs in the refrigerator, and you can see better than anything what's going on in that household, right? So, that's something that's really important, paired with the software. And then also, but paired with the ability to call in emergency services if necessary, right? That's the critical piece. Look, it's going to happen. Someone is going to have an emergency, or they're going to have, what I'm going to refer to as a pre-emergency, right? Something's not right. They need to be able to push a button and they need to be able to call for help. And if you just look at the buttons that Nomo can put around the house, never mind the motion and movement and the ability. With the Nomo system, the hub has an emergency alert button, and you get 4 tags that have emergency alert buttons. And you can wear one of the tags if you want to as fall detection. You get emergency alert buttons all over your house, right? It's like, you always think about the old West movies where the bank teller pushes the button underneath the thing, and that's what calls for help. You can have those all over the house if you want to. It's a way of just saying, I need somebody right now. I need help. And then we start looking at, different ways of applying it. We were having a conversation about it just a couple of days ago. And one of the things that we're excited about is to have conversations with fire chiefs to say, your fire department, your emergency responders, your EMTs should carry a Nomo with them. And if they have a person that's a frequent flyer, set them up with a kit, right? Every state in the country has an ADRC, an Aging Disability Resource Center. Set them up with a kit and that phone number, and they can maybe be able to have a different kind of level of escalating call for help than just calling 911 and dispatching the lights and sirens, right? To start looking at it differently, how we apply technology. Remember I said technology promised us we could all move away. Now we need to start looking at what can this technology do to help bring us closer in as far as being able to deliver care, the appropriate care in the appropriate moment.
That makes complete sense. Karin, I'd
Yeah.
love to turn this back to, what does technology like this mean to public safety? We talked about it a little bit earlier, but I'd love to kind of give us like the inside view of how might this work today versus like knowing that this is out there, how it changes kind of response and the confidence in kind of the 911 center, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think first, I would just mention, Tim, related to what you said last, is you can ask any dispatcher in any center across the United States who their frequent flyers are. And from, that aging in place high risk, they can tell you, oh, it's Betsy over at this center. She calls all the time, and they know in their head the patterns and behavior. And so with that knowledge, there's sometimes that, you feel like you can't help and you want to. You feel a little bit in the middle of a rock and a hard place where you want to help somebody. They haven't necessarily called 911 and I know they need help, but I don't know what to give them. And now knowing, for their community members, they can maybe escalate this to their fire department, as you mentioned. Say, hey, we're noticing patterns. There's a system that connects to us in 911 in the event of an emergency. Maybe this would work for them. So I get really excited about hearing that. And then also in public safety, we all have a family member, a loved one, somebody that we know in our circle that could utilize this technology, and knowing that it connects to the systems they use in their center each and every day when people are calling 911, and provides contextual information like, who is that emergency contact? Who are we going to? And it answers a really, really important question. It becomes very exciting. So a process that, happens today, somebody calls 911, we send responders out there, And oftentimes it is challenging to find out who their loved one is, to connect with them and get them to the hospital with their patient, right? Now, all of that is happening seamlessly with the family member or
Right.
caretaker involved in that process when it gets escalated. For a telecommunicator who sometimes wonders if that person ever had their help and if their member ever was connected with them, it can also give us a peace of mind, which is really important for dispatcher mental health and responder mental health, knowing that they were able to connect family members in those moments.
So Nomo has what we call the care circle, right? And so you can include as many family members, trusted neighbors, clergy, medical providers. It doesn't matter. You can have as many as you want who are in your care circle. And so when you push that button, they're the ones that get alerted. That's your safety net, and it can be as big or as small as you want it to be, right? So that's exactly to that point that because you have that larger circle, you have more care. We're starting to enlist the most powerful resource that we have in this country in caring for our aging seniors. Remember, the population is going up and the resources available are going down. The untapped resource is that unpaid caregiver, that family member, that first line of defense, right? That's critical. But I'll tell you something else though, that most people don't realize is that you can't, if you don't live in their 911, you can't call 911 for somebody, right? That blows people's
Yes.
minds. And when you make them think, your mom's in Michigan, you're in Miami, and you want to call 911, what do? Well, with
Yep.
the Nomo system, paired with Rapid SOS, they can dispatch that service with a push of a button. It's instant. And that's something that is really worthwhile to think about when we have our lives that take us away from family members. Maybe we normally live across town, but this weekend we're out of town. What are you going to do?
Yeah, being able to connect and route that call to the appropriate agency is really critical. There's some exciting stuff here.
We have
and to both your
conversations
points
with.
on this one.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, to both your points, I think this is a profound subtlety in the market that now that we're in this space, I even forget about this, that you can't call 911 on behalf of somebody else if you don't live in their jurisdiction. And I think as a community of normal people, everyday people, like who don't spend their time thinking about 911, they don't actually know this, or they
But
don't
then
really think about this.
But
Until
then
it's too late.
think about the secondary point, then reaching to those family members, right? They're all in that care circle. So they can all get the information that they need to be able to go where they need to go, or bring the list of prescriptions, or bring the list of allergies, right? To be able to provide that additional layer of information. So what we're starting to do is we're taking, the most important piece of all of this are the people. People are what matter. The person in the center that we're caring for is what matters. And that those people around them are the ones who are the most critical piece of all this. But you take that delicate thread of technology, right? That's what Nomo offers. And it just connects them all. It connects them all in a way that it's seamless, it's quick, it's effortless, and it's able to make the care occur when it needs to occur at an appropriate level.
Yeah, I this notion of care circle just makes so much sense. Every time I hear a term like that, I'm like, yeah, this is completely obvious. Like we all should have this care service or care circle.
And the
And
ability to
even
bring
for
in,
like, I assume,
with Nomo, you can bring in
go for
professional
it.
care providers, like your medical team can be part of a care circle.
Mhm.
Here's another one
Yeah.
that we're really excited about. If you're a hospital administrator and you're watching this, listen up. You have patients that get discharged that go home and need to be observed. Maybe they only need to be observed for 3 weeks, right? You can't spend thousands on a system to be able to keep an eye on somebody for 3 weeks, but a hospital can afford a couple $100s to put Nomo in a home and to be able to keep track of a patient when they're in that critical phase so they don't readmit, right? So that's where we start looking at what are the applications of an easy to use, affordable piece of technology that can put not eyeballs, but can put awareness on what someone is doing so that we can get them back to stable and back to moving forward in a progression of healing back to complete health too. It's a whole different subset of people that can benefit from technology like this.
Yeah, I think even, when you have those follow-up appointments, the fact that you now have data to talk about the patterns that have existed from the time of either admittance or last indicator, right? as a family member, I was taking care of my dad and I would always ask him, well, have you noticed anything different? Have you eaten different? And sometimes he wouldn't remember or think that that behavior was different than normal. And so now your follow-up appointments are a lot more informed as well.
So
That's a great point. I can't even remember what I've eaten or done. I can't expect my parents to know what they've been doing either.
okay, so let me add something else in there. So later on this year and in the next year, Nomo is going to have Nomo branded in medical devices: thermometer, blood pressure cuff, pulse ox, blood glucose, and a scale. I think I mentioned them all, right? But now consider this. Just take the thermometer alone, right? And as we head into cold and flu season with seniors, now imagine I'm gonna lay a couple of pieces of Nomo technology on you, right? So we'll have the Nomo branded thermometer that pairs in the Nomo system. You take your temperature, it goes in the system, it records it, so nobody has to keep track of what those are, right? You can bring that information to your doctors, but you can also set triggers on it. So if a temperature goes above a certain level, you can get an alert and you can step in, right? So now we've got technology that push a button, you can take a temperature. If it's too high, you'll get an alert, right? And on top of that, there's something in Nomo called pokes, which I love. You can actually set it so that every day at 9 a.m., mom gets a message that says, remember to take your temperature. Now mom takes her temperature, right? And it shows up, and you as in the care circle are told that temperature was recorded. And by the way, mom just got up and went and opened up the medicine cabinet, so you know that too. So now you're doing all of these light touches to make sure that we keep somebody in balance, right? That's the phrase that I keep thinking about is in emergency response, that 9/11 is when balance is been removed, right? And that's what a fall is in my mind. It's lack of balance, right? So we're looking at keeping somebody in balance with diet, with hygiene, with activity. And that way, with keeping track of their health records, right? Their blood pressure, their blood glucose, keeping all of those things in gentle balance. That's that TAP technology. How is that enabled? It's enabled with a slow, simple, steady, easy stream of just the right amount of numbers that you can just do this, right? That's what I love about the Nomo system.
I got to say, you're speaking to my heart, Tim. I lost my dad about 4 years ago. He was a diabetic. And so constantly following his blood sugar levels was critical to me. He took my kids to school, so I was constantly worried about him having a high or low and having an emergency while he was transporting or en route, to and from school. And then you pile on top of that the fact that the key indicator for us to take him to the hospital was that pulse oximeter, was that oxygen level reading to get him in. And so the families that you're going to be helping with this solution, and then also that peace of mind again for emergency responders, and the information that you're giving them in critical moments is really important. And so I'm excited for this podcast to be released and for all types of audiences to hear it.
Well, just think about what those simple pieces of information can do for somebody and how they can alert you and allow you to keep somebody in balance. I'll tell you a true story of a Nomo user. They were able to diagnose that their parents had COVID through their behaviors. This is before we had our measurement equipment. Just by watching what their behaviors were, they were like, something's not right. And they were able to make a phone call and it turned out to be COVID in an elderly couple. So we know how serious that is. So just being able to see what someone's normal activities are like, and when those activities stray outside of what we would call the normal zone, and being able to see it sooner than later, right? And be able to look for that balance point and be able to tap and keep in balance. Those are things that I think that are the real genius behind this, that, what Mike O'Shaughnessy, Kevin Ray, what they've done, is brilliant.
I was talking to a really large fire department the other day, and they said that 82% of their calls to the fire department are EMS related. So again, closing that safety gap here with critical data and immediate connection.
Yep.
So Tim, I think you've already done a really nice job of outlining kind of what's next for Nomo with some of the capabilities you're bringing out. Maybe take a step even further out. So those are imminent. It sounds like they're coming out within the next 6 months or so. Where do you see this? Where do you see you guys with this space in the next, let's call it 3 years?
So I'm gonna put on my Kevin Ray hat for a moment. Kevin Ray is our Chief Technology Officer, and again, he forgets more stuff by the time, he's finished with breakfast than I'm going to learn in 10 years. Right. And one of the things that we're working and bringing into Nomo, and I can't speak as eloquently about it as he can, but it's anomaly detection, right? So when you think about what the power of AI can do, right? AI can discern our patterns very quickly and discern when patterns are, 3% out of norm or 7% out of norm. And where is it okay to be 7% out of norm as opposed to 3% out of norm? And all of these algorithm stuff it's just beyond my capacity. But going forward, what that technology combined with Nomo's being able to gather that aggregate data is going to be able to do is to be able to make it even more intuitive for the system to be able to keep an eye on your loved one and be able to let you know when an appropriate type of intervention, may be required. And not only that, but sound detection, right? So Nomo can't listen to what you're saying, but Nomo can identify sound files. I always think of them as those squiggly lines. So imagine if it could detect a smoke alarm going off, right? Because that's not motion or movement, but it can detect a smoke alarm going off or a dog consistently barking. Could be a sign of there's something wrong. So we start looking at what the technology, especially with what AI is capable of doing and what AI could do with all of the data that Nomo is able to harvest to be able to take that, look through it, tell you what's important and you should pay attention to and what's something that, is developing so that you have even a more profound layer of knowing that promise of technology is now taking a step forward now with us where we need a different level of help and taking that step with us. And that's where Nomo is going.
Man, I love that. I love the fact that the cleverness of how you're using the thoughtfulness of using technology to actually keep us safe. I think technology for so many years is one could argue has put us in a position where we feel less safe sometimes. And it's great to see the kind of the tide turn. So love how Kevin's thinking through this in your organization. I'm super excited to see how that plays out.
I would say that, as I said earlier, technology promised us that it was okay to move away, right? Now technology needs to come through for us and help us out now that we have moved away and help us be able to take care of the people from whom we moved away, right? You said it was okay. Now you need to help me and take care of them because I can't be there. I often talk about how, and what Nomo does is it allows you to overcome two critically important obstacles. And you never think about them this way, but when you think about them, you go, oh my gosh, which is geography and time. One of them is physical space, right? And it doesn't matter if you're across town or across the street. If you're not in the home when something's happening, you're not there. So Nomo allows you to overcome that geography. But because Nomo takes that data and provides it a look at you, a historic look, either looking back at, the last hour or the last day or the last week, it also allows you to overcome the block of time. You don't have to be there at that moment to know when something is going on. That's what I was saying about waking up in the morning and looking and seeing what kind of night mom had. Normally mom gets out of bed once a night. Well, last night she got out of bed 3 times. And the night before she got out of bed 3 times. Like, what's going on? So it's that ability to say time and geography don't matter. Nomo is there and it's taking those obstacles out of your way. And now you're able to vault over them and be able to see things that they would have prevented you from being able to see.
I don't think I could wrap it up any better than that. That's the journalist in you, Tim. So well done. So people listening to this, they want to learn more about Nomo or buy Nomo. Where do they go? How do they get a hold of you?
You can go to nomosmartcare.com. You can buy systems there. There should be, you could just send me an email at tims@nomosmartcare.com. I think that's it. We would love to talk to you. We're very aggressive in having conversations with various constituents. In October of this year, at the end of the month, I'll be speaking at the National Association of Professional Financial Advisors and talking about the link between physical health and financial health, right? Because if you can keep somebody out of an assisted living or a long-term care facility longer, it's better for everybody's finances, which are really an important part of this equation. So we'll have conversations with anybody about any topic. Please, don't hesitate to call. We've got folks who are eager to have the conversation because, I'll close it on this note. The team at Nomo, Mike, Kevin, everybody, Jess, Macy, there's a big family. We all have Nomo in our homes of our loved ones. We know how helpful it can be. And we're truly trying to do good, right? I mean, Mike is trying to do good. He wants to help. So we encourage people to call. We'll do what we can.
I love that. I think I can speak for Karin and myself that we love what you guys are doing. We're happy to be a part of your journey.
Well, we're really
look
happy
forward
and
to
proud to be
seeing
part
what-
of. We love you guys, by
Yeah.
the way, just so you know.
We appreciate that. It's our pleasure to work with you. And so, Tim and Karin, thank you for sharing your time today. Fascinating stuff, and look forward to hearing more about what Nomo does in the years to come.
Great.
Exciting.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for
All
having me.
right. Thanks for listening to The Safety Gap. If you enjoyed the episode, leave a review, subscribe, and share with others who care about building safer communities. To learn more about Rapid SOS and our mission, visit us at rapidsos.com. Until next time, stay safe and take care.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Safety Gap. This podcast is powered by Rapid SOS, where we're dedicated to closing the safety gap through intelligent safety technology. If you're passionate about creating a safer, smarter world, be sure to follow The Safety Gap wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. For more information and to catch up on past episodes, visit us at rapidsos.com.